Hey friends, before we get started with today's video, I want to make sure everyone knows about my Twitch channel. The link is in the description of this video. Hopefully it's also in the top right corner if I remember to do that. Please go follow the page. I do want to start streaming there instead of here on YouTube. Twitch is just a better overall platform for streaming, and I would like to get started doing that. I wish I would have done it sooner, but I'm going to start doing it now. So please go follow there. That's where I'll be playing Fire Emblem and whatnot with you guys. So please go give it a follow. It would mean a lot, and I will see you guys over there. Now on to today's discussion. Hello friends, Adam here with FED. So I've been thinking about a particular class type that isn't in Three Houses that I wish was, and I've been thinking about how they should have implemented it. So that's what I want to talk about today. But before that, I went into my Discord server and asked everyone who was on at the time this morning. It was actually this morning. I asked everyone who was on at the time what class from a previous entry in Fire Emblem would you like added to Three Houses, or what essentially just which class did Three Houses miss that really would have benefited being there. You know what I mean? So we got a lot of answers. So thanks everyone. If you want to be a part of future discussions like this, make sure to join the Discord. The link is in the description of this video and every video I post. But we got a lot of answers that, like, Ninja was pretty common. We saw Summoner a few times, which yeah, Summoner would be great, like FE8 Summoner for like baiting ambush spawns or whatever else. That's what Master Annex said, at least. True Blade was another one that was brought up a few times, as in the tier 3 Swordmaster class from Radiant Dawn, and that one would be cool. Berserker was brought up, although Warrior is basically Berserker in this game, in Three Houses, right? So, I mean, I get it, but not super necessary. Ballistician was brought up a few times, and all sorts of classes that are really interesting and really cool, and it would have been nice to see. Things like Halberdier as well. So, a lot of classes were left out that people miss, right? It would have been nice to have them added. But there's one in particular, one class type in particular that only one person mentioned, and they honestly kind of mentioned it in passing. They didn't really mention it as in depth as I want to go, and that is the transformative classes, or classes where the player character transforms into a some sort of dragon or beast or bird or something like that. So think like Laguz units from Radiant Dawn and Path of Radiance, or the dragon units from, like, you know, FE1, FE3, the GBA games, and stuff like that. Those units, you know, your Faz, your Murs, and then of course Awakening had dragons, both Tiki and Na and Noe, and also had the Tagwell or Tugwell, whatever, the rabbits in Pan. Is that how you say it? It's just Pan and Yarn? Is it Yarny? Is it Panay and Yarnay? Or is it Yarn and Pan? I don't know how to pronounce their names, but the bunny people. And then Fates had wolfskins, kitsune, and dragons. So all of those are they all act very differently throughout the different games too, which I think is really interesting. So the most common way we see them handled is they have some sort of weapon or item that allows them to transform, and that increases their stats. But eventually that item does break, and then they can't do it anymore. And that's probably my least favorite way that it's handled. So we're talking like Binding Blade with Fa, or Faye, however you say her name anymore. Binding Blade, that dragon, she has a Divine Dragon Stone. Once it breaks, she can't be a dragon anymore. Like, she's just useless at that point. Same goes for Myrrh, and I think that's really disappointing. Then there's other games that still have that same mechanic of, like, Dragon Stones that break and whatever, or Beast Stones that break, but they're buyable. They're buyable, and we see that in, like, Awakening. You can buy those like candy. Fire Emblem 3, Mystery of the Emblem, has that to a lesser extent, where they do like they're buyable, kind of. They're buyable, kind of, but not to the extent they are in Awakening, where they're just readily available all over the place, right? In Awakening, there's like specific shops that just sell them on the Overworld map. But that also goes into another subsection of the beast stone / dragon stones, and that is having different kinds of stones that these characters can use to have different stats. So the most basic form we see is an awakening, where there's like the dragon stone and like the dragon stone plus, where it's literally just a better dragon stone in every way. It's just better, outright, flat out, better stats all around. But then you have Mystery of the Emblem, where there's different kinds of dragon stones and they do different things. And then beyond that, there's also Fates. Fates' dragon stones are they are more of a give and take. There isn't one that's outright better than the other always. For instance, there is a beast stone and there is a beast rune. The beast stone is generally more offensive based. It has higher speed, but lower defense, while the beast rune has higher defense and lower speed. That's basically kind of the difference. That's the gist of it. Those are the major differences, right? So you're not going to double as much with your beast rune, you're not going to take as much damage, and I think that's a really interesting trade-off and allows you to decide what you want to do for enemy phase or player phase. I think it's a really cool idea, and they do the same thing with dragon stones. Oh, actually, dragon stones are really interesting because dragon stones can't double. Like, you can't double with a dragon stone, but your stats are just super high. So the trade-off is use this dragon stone, have high stats, but not be able to double, or use another weapon like a sword or a tome and be able to double and potentially deal more damage, but you're going to take more damage in return. I really like that sort of trade-off system a lot, personally, when we're talking about stones, if we're using the stone system that we see in most of the games. But now I want to touch on Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. The Laguz are probably my favorite implementation of these transformation units. Less so Path of Radiance and more Radiant Dawn. So every Laguz unit has a gauge. They could just call it the Laguz gauge. And it fills up over time, and when it's full, they can transform. And then that same gauge, once they transform, starts depleting over time and through doing battles and whatever else. And once it hits 0, they are forced to untransform. A lot of people think this is really tedious and they really hate it, but Radiant Dawn in particular gives you so many tools to work with it that it's honestly, in my opinion, totally worth it. So, and on top of that, the beast units generally, I mean, there's some exceptions, I get it, but generally the beast units are strong enough to warrant the need to have some sort of nerf like this. You look at like Janaf and Ulki. If they were permanently transformed, they'd be busted, right? They already are really, really good. You look at Mordecai. If he didn't have to untransform, he would just be really, really good. But with the having to transform and all that, he's just like, okay, he's pretty good, and he can become great. And I think that is a really good balancing mechanic in Radiant Dawn. In Path of Radiance, it's not worth your time. It's the bonuses aren't as big to transformation. It's not double. It's only 1.5 times. And the ability to manipulate the gauge is a lot less prevalent in that game. And it's really just because of the inclusion of Allevi Grass, which just plus 15 Laguz gauge when used, and it has a bunch of uses in Radiant Dawn. And with that introduction, it made Laguz a lot better. So, and a lot more fun to use, and just made it so that you're just kind of managing the Laguz gauge. It's just another micromanaging thing that you have to do, and Fire Emblem was all about that anyways, right? So it's fine. It's fine. But 3 houses. How would we want it implemented in 3 houses? And I think I would want it to be, I want to say almost like a hybrid system. I want, maybe give the character who's transforming like 2 different transformations, one that's more, or maybe they have to use the Laguz gauge to transform, but then they also have like a weapon that is equipped while they're transformed. Or maybe you choose between 2 different weapons. Maybe if they are a beast type unit, maybe they choose between using their claws or using their fangs. And if they use their claws, it's maybe slightly more defensive or something, but if they use their fangs, it's more deadly. That'd be a really fun trade-off. And you can do the same thing for dragons and stuff. But I really like the idea of a gauge. I like having the gauge to balance it out. Make it so they're extremely powerful when transformed, but, you know, pretty helpless when they're not. So, really cool idea to me, personally. So Three Houses really could have done this. I'm surprised they didn't with spoilers for Three Houses mid-game paralog stuff. Mid-game paralog stuff, specifically Golden Deer characters. Okay, I'm gonna spoil it in like 3 seconds. Is that 3 seconds? I don't know. Anyways, spoiler time. Marianne. I'm surprised they didn't make Marianne a beast unit after that paralog. I think that would have been a really cool upgrade to her. It made her a really interesting unit. She's already good. She has a good spell list. I get it. But that would have been a really fun change. And it would have been like, wow, Marianne's so cool. She can turn into this ginormo beast monster guy. And then it would have given you a playable monster unit, which I think Three Houses was sorely lacking in. I think that would have been really cool. You know, a playable unit who takes up three or four tiles, or two or four tiles, I should say. And that would have been really fun. Anyways, those are just my thoughts. What are your thoughts on beast units, how they've been implemented in the past, and how you would have put them in Three Houses? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Please like the video before you leave, and please subscribe to the channel. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time, friends.